The Kingdom of England, the second half of the 16th century. Behind the splendor of royal courts, magnificent castles, and elaborate ceremonies, a hidden war was unfolding. It was a conflict that involved secret codes, intercepted letters, and espionage. At its center stood one woman, Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots, whose claim to the English throne threatened the reign of Queen Elizabeth I and the future of Protestant England. For many years, the fate of England depended as much on intelligence officers and cryptographers as on soldiers. This story tells of one of the first conspiracies in which Queen Elizabeth's intelligence service successfully countered an international Catholic network that sought to replace her with Mary Stuart and restore Catholicism in England. The origins of this story stretched back several decades. When King Henry VIII sought to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, Pope Clement VII refused to grant the annulment. Henry responded by breaking with Rome, establishing the Church of England, and marrying Anne Boleyn. To Protestants, Anne's daughter, Elizabeth, was the lawful heir to the English throne. Catholics, however, rejected Henry's second marriage as invalid. In their eyes, Elizabeth was illegitimate and therefore had no legal right to rule England. Instead, they recognized Mary Stuart as the rightful Queen of England. Through her grandmother, Margaret Tudor, Mary was the senior surviving legitimate descendant of King Henry VII, who was the first monarch of the House of Tudor. This dynastic dispute transformed Mary from Queen of Scotland into the greatest political threat facing Queen Elizabeth. At the same time, Mary Stuart became the central figure of Catholic resistance in Protestant England. On the 19th of August 1561, 18-year-old Mary, Queen of Scots, returned to Scotland after 13 years in France. She had been sent there as a child of 5 and had grown up amid the sophistication of the French royal court. She was the wife of King Francis II of France, but his unexpected death in December 1560 left her a young widow. Returning to Scotland, Mary found a kingdom profoundly different from the Catholic France where she had spent most of her life. Scotland was undergoing the Protestant Reformation. Religious tensions divided the country, while powerful noble families competed relentlessly for influence. Having spent most of her life abroad, Mary possessed little practical understanding of Scotland's volatile political landscape. In February 1565, Mary fell deeply in love with her cousin, Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. The possibility of their marriage alarmed Queen Elizabeth. Both Queen Mary and Darnley were descendants of the Tudor dynasty. Together, they represented an even stronger hereditary claim to the English throne than either possessed individually. Queen Elizabeth therefore viewed the marriage not merely as a Scottish affair, but as a direct threat to England's political stability. To prevent the union, she dispatched the experienced diplomat and trusted intelligence officer Nicholas Throckmorton to Scotland in May 1565 to reinforce England's ambassador. However, his mission failed. On the 29th of July 1565, Queen Mary and Lord Darnley were married. This proved to be only the first of many wrong decisions during Queen Mary's reign. Even before Queen Mary's return, England had an intelligence network in Scotland. The head of the English Intelligence Service and Secretary of State, William Cecil, closely followed events in Scotland. His most valuable source inside Scotland was the English ambassador, Thomas Randolph. Known within Cecil's correspondence by the codenames Barnaby and Pamphilus, Randolph served simultaneously as diplomat and intelligence officer. His reports provided detailed accounts of Scotland's political life. He described conversations within Queen Mary's court, rivalries among the nobility, religious conflicts, military developments, and emerging conspiracies. Randolph, being a Protestant, enjoyed the confidence of Scotland's Protestant lords, allowing him not only to gather intelligence but also to influence Scottish politics from within. In June 1563, Randolph demonstrated knowledge of the secret methods of espionage. He bribed a servant employed by Queen Mary's Catholic confessor, obtaining access to the priest's private correspondence. After copying the letters, the originals were quietly returned the originals. The marriage between Queen Mary and Darnley deteriorated rapidly. Although Darnley had expected to share royal authority, Mary refused to grant him the crown matrimonial, which gave the right of a queen regnant's male consort to reign equally with his wife, as co-sovereign. This refusal left him politically frustrated and increasingly isolated. On the 19th of June 1566, Queen Mary gave birth in Edinburgh Castle to her son, James, the future James VI of Scotland and later James I of England, who would eventually unite the crowns of the kingdoms into the United Kingdom. 8 months later, tragedy struck. In February 1567, Lord Darnley was murdered outside Edinburgh under highly suspicious circumstances. Suspicion immediately fell upon James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, one of Scotland's most powerful nobles. Bothwell had long been suspected of having designs on the crown of Scotland, and his close relationship with Queen Mary gave rise to rumours that they were sexually intimate. After Queen Mary married Bothwell in May 1567, just 3 months after Darnley's death, many believed she approved and participated in the conspiracy. Queen Mary's political credibility collapsed. The coalition of 26 Scottish nobles, later known as the Confederate Lords, rebelled against Queen Mary. Defeated and forced to surrender, Mary Stuart was imprisoned in Lochleven Castle. There, Nicholas Throckmorton helped persuade her to abdicate in favour of her infant son, James. At just 1 year old, James became King James VI of Scotland, while power passed to a Protestant regency. For William Cecil and Queen Elizabeth's government, it was an outstanding strategic victory. In May 1568, Mary Stuart escaped from Lochleven Castle. Unable to regain power in Scotland, she made a fateful decision. She crossed into England, believing her cousin Elizabeth would provide protection and support. Instead, she became Elizabeth's prisoner. Mary was initially confined in Carlisle Castle before being transferred in July 1568 to Bolton Castle, farther from the Scottish border and under tighter supervision. Although officially described as an honoured guest, Mary Stuart was effectively under house arrest. She would remain in English captivity for the next 19 years. Mary's imprisonment transformed her into the focal point of Catholic opposition throughout England. The idea of Mary Stuart as the Catholic Queen of England was particularly strong among the great Catholic families of northern England. In 1569, the dream of Catholics erupted into open rebellion. The Rising of the North, also known as the Revolt of the Northern Earls, aimed to free Mary from captivity, arrange her marriage to Thomas Howard, Duke of Norfolk, and place the couple on the English throne. However, the rebellion failed. Norfolk, despite being Queen Elizabeth's own cousin, was imprisoned in the Tower of London. After admitting guilt and pleading for clemency, he was eventually released and placed under house arrest. Yet the danger had not passed. In 1570, Pope Pius V issued the papal bull Regnans in Excelsis, excommunicating Queen Elizabeth and releasing her subjects from their allegiance to her. For many Catholic conspirators, resistance against Queen Elizabeth could now be justified as a religious duty. By 1570, the Catholic conspiracy, also known as the Ridolfi Plot, centered on two main figures. The first was John Leslie, Bishop of Ross and one of Mary Stuart's closest advisors. The second was Roberto Ridolfi, the wealthy Florentine banker living in England and an agent of Pope Pius V, who organized the conspiracy's international connections. He met with the Pope, with King Philip II of Spain, and with the Grand Duke of Alba, who governed the Spanish Netherlands. The Ridolfi Plot had a large-scale plan aimed against Protestant England and Queen Elizabeth. The Duke of Alba would invade England with approximately 10,000 troops. Simultaneously, northern English Catholics would rise in rebellion. Queen Elizabeth would be assassinated. Put Mary Stuart on the English throne. Mary Stuart would marry the Duke of Norfolk. Re-establish Catholicism as the state religion of England. However, Cecil's intelligence network didn't doze off. Agents of William Cecil and Francis Walsingham, the English ambassador to France at the time, closely monitored Mary Stuart's courtiers and servants, intercepted correspondence, recruited informers, and penetrated Catholic networks. On the 12th of April 1571, one of these operations produced a decisive breakthrough. At Port Dover, customs officials searched the baggage of Charles Baillie, secretary to Bishop John Leslie, who had just arrived from Flanders. Hidden among his possessions were encrypted letters, unencrypted letters addressed to John Leslie, and freshly printed copies of Leslie's political treatise, A Defence of the Honour of the Right High, Mighty and Noble Princess Marie Queen of Scotland and Dowager of France, printed in Liège. The treatise openly defended Mary's claim to the English crown. Baillie and the documents he found were delivered to William Brooke, Baron Cobham, Warden of the Cinque Ports. In an unexpected twist, Brooke passed the unencrypted letters to John Leslie but not to the Privy Council. Leslie, with the assistance of the Spanish ambassador, Gerard Espessa, replaced the compromising correspondence with a less compromising one. Charles Baillie was arrested and imprisoned, first in the Marshalsea prison, later in the Tower of London. William Cecil placed his own undercover agent, William Herle, into Baillie's prison cell. Herle gained Baillie's confidence and secretly copied his correspondence with Bishop Leslie. Cecil received copies of each letter. As a result, Cecil received pieces of the puzzle that gradually formed a picture of the conspiracy. Then came a big stroke of luck. In late August 1571, Thomas Browne, a merchant from Shrewsbury, received a bag of silver coins from two secretaries of the Duke of Norfolk, asking him to deliver it to one of the Duke's officials in the north of England. The unusual weight of the bag aroused the merchant's suspicion. Opening the bag, Browne found £600 of gold coins from the French ambassador to Mary's supporters in Scotland, as well as encrypted letters. Knowing Norfolk was under suspicion, Browne immediately reported his findings to William Cecil. The letters were partially deciphered. Soon afterwards, Cecil's agents searched Norfolk's residence and discovered additional correspondence from Mary Stuart discussing the conspiracy. During interrogation, the Duke of Norfolk's secretary revealed the key to the letter's cipher. The evidence was now irrefutable. John Leslie was arrested. During interrogation, he confessed to his role and identified the principal conspirators. The Duke of Norfolk likewise admitted his involvement in transmitting money, correspondence, and political support to Mary's allies. In January 1572, he was convicted on 3 counts of high treason. On the 2nd of June 1572, Thomas Howard, Duke of Norfolk, was publicly executed on Tower Hill. The Ridolfi Plot had been destroyed. The Spanish ambassador, Gerard Espessa, was expelled from England. Roberto Ridolfi, safely abroad when the conspiracy collapsed, never returned. John Leslie, Bishop of Ross, was released from prison in 1573, but was banished from England forever. Charles Baillie was also expelled from England and appeared in Antwerp the following year. The failure of the Ridolfi Plot did not end Catholic resistance. In the years that followed, new plots emerged, including the Throckmorton Plot and the Babington Plot, both of which again aimed to place Mary Stuart on the English throne and restore Catholicism as England's state religion. However, each successive conspiracy encountered England's professional intelligence service. For nearly 3 decades, the survival of Elizabeth's government depended not simply on military strength, but on information carefully collected, secretly transmitted, and ruthlessly exploited by William Cecil and, later, Francis Walsingham. Although Mary Stuart remained the symbolic hope of England's Catholics, it was the vigilance of Elizabeth's intelligence service that ultimately secured the Tudor dynasty and shaped the future of England and the United Kingdom.